You know, there's something about sitting on a porch alone in the morning, just you, your coffee, the birds doing whatever birds do, that has a way of making you honest with yourself. And if you're sitting with around $300,000 saved up, wondering whether that's enough to retire on, just you, by yourself, I want to sit here with you for a few minutes and have that honest conversation. No alarm bells, no promises I can't keep, just the real picture. Because you deserve that. Let me start with something I hear a lot, in different forms. Someone sends me a message or leaves a comment, and what they're really asking, underneath all the numbers and the questions about withdrawal rates, what they're really asking is, did I do enough? Is it too late? Can I still be okay? And a lot of the time that person is doing this alone. Maybe they went through a divorce later in life than they expected. Maybe they lost a spouse. Maybe they just never married, and they built what they built. And now they're staring down retirement with one income, one social security check coming someday, and a balance that feels both large and terrifyingly small at the same time. If that's you, I want you to know something before we get into a single number. You are not alone in this position, not even close. The Federal Reserve tracks retirement savings across the country, real households, real people, and the data shows that the median household between ages 65 and 74 has right around $200,000 in retirement savings. That's the median. Half of American households that age have less than that. So $300,000, especially for a single person, already puts you above the middle of the pack. That doesn't mean $300,000 is easy. It isn't. But I want you to walk into this conversation knowing you're not starting from failure. You're starting from reality. And reality, once you face it clearly, is something you can actually work with. That's what today is about. Not cheerleading, not doom, just clarity. Let's start with the most important number most people never actually sit down and calculate. If you have $300,000 saved, how much can you realistically take out each year? Financial planners have talked for decades about something called the 4% rule. The idea is straightforward. In your first year of retirement, you withdraw 4% of your total portfolio. Then you adjust that amount slightly each year for inflation. Done carefully, the research suggests that approach has historically given a retirement portfolio a reasonable chance of lasting 30 years. 4% of $300,000. That's $12,000 a year. $1,000 a month. Let that number sit for a second. Don't react to it yet. Just let it be what it is. Now, here's the honest follow-up. For a single person who might live well into their 80s, or even their 90s, which is genuinely possible and worth planning for, some planners would actually suggest being a little more conservative, somewhere between 3% and 3.5%. At 3.5%, that's $10,500 a year from your portfolio. At 3%, it's $9,000. I know. Those numbers feel small, and by themselves they are. That's the truth. But here's what I want you to understand. And this is important. Your portfolio is not supposed to carry you alone. It was never designed to be the whole plan. It's one leg of a stool. The question is, what are the other legs? And the biggest other leg for most Americans is something they've been paying into their entire working life. So let's talk about that. Social Security for a single retiree with modest savings isn't just a supplement. It's a structural foundation of the whole plan, and most people I talk to either underestimate how much it matters, or they make one critical decision about it without fully understanding what's at stake. Here's where things stand right now. The average Social Security retirement benefit for a single person is running somewhere around $3,400 to $24,100 per year. That's roughly $1,950 a month for someone with an average earnings history. Now combine that with the $12,000 a year from a responsible portfolio withdrawal. Suddenly you're not looking at $1,000 a month. You're looking at around $36,000 a year. That changes the conversation considerably. And this is where I want you to pay attention. That $36,000 number depends heavily on when you claim Social Security. And for a single person especially, this timing decision is one of the most consequential financial choices you'll ever make, because there's no spouse's benefit to fall back on. It's just you and the number you lock in. Here's how the timing breaks down. If you claim at 62, the earliest you can start, you'll receive a permanently reduced benefit, roughly $18,000 to $20,000 per year for an average earner. That reduction doesn't go away. It stays with you for the rest of your life. If you wait until your full retirement age, which is 66 or 67 depending on when you were born, you'll get the full benefit. That average $1,950 a month. And if you wait until $70 a month, your benefit is significantly higher, potentially 24 to 32% more than your full retirement age amount, depending on your situation. Let me put a human face on that. Imagine two neighbors, both single, both have $300,000 in savings. They retire the same year. One of them claims Social Security at 62 because she needs the income now, and she's worried about waiting. The other one holds on, does a little part-time work, keeps withdrawals low, and claims at 70. Over the course of a 20-year retirement, the difference in total lifetime income between those two decisions can be substantial, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars when you add it all up. One of them is comfortable, the other is anxious every single month. Now, I want to be fair here. Waiting until 70 isn't the right answer for everyone. If you have health concerns, or if you genuinely need the income sooner, that changes the math. But for a single person with $300,000 who is relatively healthy and can manage for a few more years, waiting on Social Security is often the closest thing to a guaranteed raise that exists. Here's my practical nudge. Go to ssa.create a free account if you don't already have one. Look at your projected benefit at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70. Just look at the three numbers. That's it. You don't have to decide anything today. Just know what you're working with. Now I want to talk about something that most retirement planning tools quietly glide right past. Being single in retirement is more expensive per person than being part of a couple. Not dramatically, not unfairly, just structurally. And if you don't account for that, you'll plan with numbers that don't actually match your life. Here's what I mean. Federal data on spending for Americans 65 and older shows average annual expenses in the range of $64,000 to $64,000. But that figure is heavily influenced by two-person households. When you're one person absorbing what used to be shared costs, the picture looks different. A single person living modestly, not lavishly, just comfortably, often spends somewhere between $38,000 and $48,000 a year, and that range matters a lot when your income is around $36,000. Let's walk through where the money actually goes. Housing is usually the biggest one. If you own your home outright, you're in a much better position than most. But the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, those costs don't split. One roof, one set of utility bills, all yours. If you're renting, particularly in a high-cost area, this is where single retirement gets genuinely difficult. Rent doesn't care how many people live there. It's what it is. Healthcare is the one that keeps people up at night. And honestly, it should be on your radar. Not to frighten you, but to plan for it clearly. One estimate from Fidelity suggests that a single 65-year-old retiree can realistically face somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 in healthcare costs over the course of retirement. Medicare helps, significantly, but it doesn't cover everything. Dental, vision, hearing aids, long-term care if it ever comes to that. These are real costs, and they tend to grow faster than general inflation. And then there are the unexpected things, the furnace that goes out in January, the car that needs a new transmission, the ER visit that costs $2,000, even with insurance. When you're part of a couple, there's often a second paycheck, a second perspective, a second pair of hands. When it's just you, that's your emergency fund. That's your problem to solve, and that's worth building a buffer for. I'll say this gently, because I think it matters. There's a small emotional weight in all of this that doesn't show up in the spreadsheet. There's no one to split the Costco run with. No one to share the streaming subscription. No one to say, hey, let's just eat at home tonight. These feel like small things, and they are small, but small things repeated over 10 or 15 years have a way of adding up. None of this is meant to discourage you. It's meant to make sure you're planning for the life you're actually going to live, not an imaginary one where every cost is somehow shared. Here's something I want to say plainly, and I want you to really hear it, because I think it's where a lot of retirement conversations go wrong. Most of what you read or watch treats $300,000 as either enough or not enough, like it's a pass-fail test. And that framing, that simple binary, causes more anxiety than almost anything else, because it's the wrong question entirely. The right question isn't, is $300,000 enough? The right question is, enough for what kind of life? And that second question, that's one you have real power over, more than you might think, because retirement isn't a fixed cost, it's a series of choices: where you live, how much you withdraw, when you claim Social Security, what you spend on and what you genuinely don't need. None of those things are locked in yet, and every one of them changes the math. So let's look at what that actually looks like in practice, for real people in real situations. I want to introduce you to 3 people. None of them are wealthy. None of them are in crisis. They're just navigating retirement with $300,000 and making different choices. And the outcomes are genuinely different. First, meet Margaret. She's 67, lives in a small town in Ohio, and owns her home outright. It's a modest house, 3 bedrooms, a garden she's been tending for 20 years. She's been widowed for 4 years. Her Social Security check comes in at about $24,000 a year, right around average. From her $300,000 portfolio, she withdraws at 4%, which gives her another $12,000. Total, about $36,000 a year. Is that wealthy? No. But Margaret is comfortable. She has what she needs. She goes to her book club, drives to see her grandkids a few times a year, and has dinner out once a week with friends. She watches what she spends on healthcare extras and keeps a $15,000 cash buffer for surprises. She doesn't feel poor. She doesn't feel anxious. She feels settled. And the key to that isn't the number. It's the combination of low housing costs, disciplined withdrawals, and realistic expectations. Those 3 things working together made $36,000 feel like enough. Now meet David. He's 62, divorced, living in a city on the West Coast. He claimed Social Security early, at 62, because he was tired, he needed income, and honestly he wasn't sure he should wait. His benefit came in at about $19,000 a year. Combined with $12,000 from his portfolio, he's at roughly $31,000. But his rent is $1,800 a month. That's $21,600 a year in rent alone. More than 2/3 of his portfolio income goes straight to housing. He's now working part-time, not by choice but because the math didn't work. And he carries a quiet regret about claiming early, about not considering whether to move somewhere less expensive before retiring. He's not in crisis, but he's not at peace either. And the gap between Margaret and David isn't intelligence or discipline, it's location and timing. 2 decisions made differently created 2 very different retirements. And then there's Carol. She's 55, still working part-time, a few hours a week doing bookkeeping for a small business. She's got $300,000 saved. And here's the thing, She's not touching it much yet. She's withdrawing only about 3%, keeping the portfolio intact as long as she can. Her part-time income, around $22,000 a year, covers her daily needs. She hasn't claimed Social Security yet. She's letting that future benefit grow. Carol isn't wealthy. She isn't coasting, but she has something valuable, a plan, a clear sense of the levers she's pulling and why. And that plan, even more than the balance in her account, is what gives her a feeling of quiet control. The thread connecting Margaret, David, and Carol is this: location, timing, and withdrawal discipline are the three levers that single retirees with $300,000 can actually control. The balance is what it is. The levers are yours. Now I want to spend a few minutes on the risks that tend to blindside people. Not because I want to worry you, but because understanding them early is the difference between catching a small problem and facing a large one later. There are three I want to walk you through. The first one is something planners call sequence of returns risk. The name sounds technical, but the idea is simple and important. Imagine you retire in a year when the market drops 30%. It happens, we've seen it. And in that year, you still need to eat. You still need to pay rent and utilities and the electric bill. So you withdraw your $12,000 anyway. But here's the problem. You're now selling shares at severely depressed prices. Those shares are gone. And even if the market recovers completely over the next few years, even if it goes up 40%, those specific shares you sold at the bottom, they're not coming back. They can't participate in the recovery. Early losses in retirement compound against you in a way that losses at other times in life simply don't. A bad first 5 years in retirement can permanently damage a portfolio's ability to sustain you, even if the long-term average return ends up being fine. The simple protection: before you retire, build a cash buffer of 1 to 2 years of essential expenses. Not in the market. Just in the savings account or money market. That buffer means you never have to sell investments at the worst possible time to cover your basic needs. The second risk is inflation creep, and it's slower, quieter, and arguably more dangerous. Here's the arithmetic stated plainly. At 2 to 3% annual inflation, prices effectively double every 20 to 25 years. What costs $32,000 to maintain today may cost $55,000 to $60,000 to maintain in your early 80s. And healthcare inflation historically runs faster than general inflation, meaning the costs that grow fastest as you age are also the costs that are hardest to control. Your $300,000 doesn't grow to match that on its own. Your Social Security does get annual cost of living adjustments. That helps. But the math still tightens over time. And the time to think about that isn't at 80, it's now. The third risk is the one nobody likes to talk about, because it's not about the market or the economy. It's about us. Behavioral mistakes. Most of the people I've seen get into genuine financial trouble in retirement didn't make bad investment decisions. They made a series of small emotional spending decisions that quietly chipped away at the foundation. The first few years of retirement feel like freedom, and they should. You've earned it. But that feeling of freedom can lead to spending at a rate the portfolio can't sustain. A big trip in year 1, another in year 2, a new car, a generous loan to an adult child that never comes back. None of these feel catastrophic in the moment. Together, over 5 years, they can hollow out a $300,000 account in ways that take a decade to fully register. Your $300,000 can survive a bad market year. Markets recover. What's harder to recover from is a pattern of voluntary decisions that outpace your income. The simple protection here isn't willpower. It's a plan, written down, specific, and revisited once a year. A plan that says, if the market drops 25%, here's what I'll cut, and here's what I will not touch. All right, let's bring this down to earth. Not a 20-point action plan, not a financial overhaul, Just 5 clear things, the kind a trusted friend might quietly suggest over coffee. First, know your floor. Sit down, literally with a piece of paper, and write out your true must-have expenses: housing, utilities, groceries, Medicare premiums, and any supplement you carry. Prescription costs, transportation. That's it for now. Don't add dining out or travel yet, just the floor. That number, your floor, is the anchor of your whole plan. Everything else is negotiable. But you have to know the floor. Second, get your 3 social security numbers. Go to ssa.gov. Create an account if you haven't already. Look at your projected benefit at 62. At your full retirement age, add that 70. Write all 3 down. For a single person with $300,000, the gap between the 62 number and the 70 number is often the single most powerful financial lever available to you. Not a stock pick, not a CD rate. Just waiting and letting a guaranteed income stream grow. Third, choose a withdrawal rate you can actually defend. If you're 62 and retirement could stretch 25 or 30 years or more, withdrawing 4% from the start is optimistic. 3 to 3.5% is more honest for a long horizon. That's $9,000 to $10,000 a year from $300,000. Not a lot on its own, but it's also a portfolio that's working to sustain itself, not exhaust itself. Paired with Social Security, it can be workable. Fourth, do your gap math out loud. Here's an example. Say your essential budget is $40,000 a year. Social Security will be $24,000. That means your portfolio needs to cover $16,000, which is 5.3% of $300,000. That's above the safe withdrawal guidelines. That gap is real. And seeing it clearly, right now, not at 75, gives you options. You can reduce the budget. You can delay retirement by a year or 2. You can consider relocating somewhere less expensive. You can work part-time a little longer. Those decisions are available to you today. They become much harder a decade from now. Fifth, write 3 sentences about your downside plan. Not a binder, not a financial model. 3 sentences. Something like, if my portfolio drops 25%, I will pause extra spending and cut dining and travel for that year. I will not sell investments to cover a car repair. That's what my cash cushion is for. And I won't make any major financial decisions in a panic. That's it. 3 sentences. Keep them somewhere you'll actually see them. I want to leave you with something honest. $300,000 is not a fortune. I won't pretend it is. But it's not nothing either. And the quiet truth, the one that doesn't make headlines, is that a lot of Americans are navigating retirement with less. Some of them are doing just fine. Because the balance matters, yes, but the decisions matter more. Being single in retirement is harder in some ways. There's no one to absorb the unexpected costs with you, no backup income when the car breaks down, no second voice to sanity check a big decision. I don't want to minimize that. It's real. But there's something else that's also real. And I mean this genuinely, not as a pep talk. When it's just you, your plan doesn't have to accommodate anyone else's habits or fears or spending patterns. It just has to work for you. And that simplicity, when you lean into it, is actually a kind of freedom. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Not next month. This week. Sit with the numbers. Be honest with yourself about what you actually need versus what you'd simply like. Pull up your Social Security projections. Write down your floor budget. And if the gap is real, and for some of you it will be, face it with open eyes, not panic. Because an honest picture, even an uncomfortable one, is always better than a comfortable illusion you find out is wrong at 78. You've gotten this far. That took something, perseverance, discipline, probably some difficult years in there. Don't underestimate what those same qualities will take you from here. If today was useful, If something landed for you, I hope you'll stay with us. Every week on this channel, we sit down and have this kind of conversation. No hype, no alarm bells, just honest numbers and real talk about what retirement actually looks like for regular Americans. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.